Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Darling Nikki, which is her show every Wednesday at 8:30. We were running a little late. We had a little difficulty, so just bear with us a little bit. Tonight, we want to touch a subject that's very, very touchy. Um, we want to address domestic violence and sexual assault and how they intersect. We have two guests tonight, Erica, and we have Kenya. Kenya has a little issue with her microphone, so I have to mute every now and then, so I don't hear myself double talking. What's up, ladies?
Hey, hello, good evening.
Nikki, why you keep muting your mic, Nikki?
Oh, because I just want to make sure it doesn't have a bounce back.
It's not coming from you. It's not coming from you. It's actually coming from Kenya. So I'll mute Kenya's mic until she starts talking. Okay.
Okay, cool.
So interesting show tonight. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Um, where do we begin?
Oh wow. Where do we begin?
So let's just go from a context standpoint. It says, what is domestic violence? Domestic violence is the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and or other abusive behavior as part of a systematic pattern of power and control perpetrated by one intimate partner against another. It includes physical violence, sexual violence, threats, economic and emotional and psychological abuse. The frequency and severity of domestic violence varies dramatically. In the United States, more than 10 million adults experience domestic violence annually. Wow. So those numbers, as we would say, numbers don't lie. Those numbers would say that when we talk about being in a pandemic, we would say that that domestic violence is a pandemic and it's a crisis.
Yeah. Well, I guess when you're locked up with somebody for an amount of time, I think it goes back to what they were saying initially when the pandemic first started. It's a lot of people that wanted to escape in different situations. And now for other reasons, you're stuck in the house and you can't escape daily. So, so
So I got some more stuff. I just want to read some statistics, and these statistics should scare us. Um, this is according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. It says 1 in 4 women and 1 in 10 men experience sexual violence, physical violence, and are stalking by an intimate partner during their lifetime. such as being concerned for their safety, PTSD symptoms, injury, needed victim services. Approximately 1 in 5 female victims and 1 in 12 male victims need medical care. Female victims sustain injuries 3 times more than their male victims. 1 in 5 female victims and 1 in 9 male victims need legal services. 23.2% of women and 13.9% of men have experienced severe physical violence by an intimate partner during their lifetime. One of the things that I know that we wanted to discuss, Nikki, and Erica, you can unmute your mic. I have to just unmute Kenya's when we get to the Kenya. One of the issues that a lot of people think that or will consider domestic violence always it's just women victims, and
Hmm.
based off of that, it's saying the statistics vary with numbers, but it's also male victims as well.
Right.
I know that one of the issues that you had wanted to touch on was the non-physical acts of domestic violence,
Hmm.
economic, emotional, spiritual, psychological. I'm quite sure a lot of people, and I hope everybody in the chat, if you're a victim of domestic violence, and you're going through that type of situation right now, that's the number to call to get some help. Like I
I don't
said, that
think most people know until it's too late.
Right.
I mean, you all the way in it, you don't really understand what's going on. It's a build up. It doesn't just happen.
Yes, I think some of the things that need to be discussed are the signs. What are some of the signs when you first start? And you really can't, there's no way that you can really know, but there are signs and signals. And I think a lot of times people don't read into the signs and signals because when you first start dating or you're in a situation with somebody, you don't pay attention to the signs and the signals. But they're always, as everybody's been putting on social media now, there are always red flags, and there are always flags.
well,
And
let's talk about the signs. You guys in the chat, you guys can join the show as well. And if we don't bring up no signs, you can bring up some signs. You may have been a victim of domestic violence, or you may have been the aggressor in domestic violence. You may have put
Mhm.
somebody in a situation prior, and then you look back at it and be like, you know what? I was an abuser. I was the abuser in an abusive relationship.
Mhm.
Sometimes people like Erica said, sometimes people don't know it's till it's too late.
Mm. I think one
Unfortunately,
of the things though, Quentin, because I've been posting, for the past couple of days, is that everybody automatically thinks when you start speaking about domestic violence that it's in regards to physical abuse. But some of the posts that I posted this week, they were saying that there are 6 types of abuse. And so a lot of times people will say, well, I'm not being abused. I think one of the reasons why I actually chose to do domestic violence, on top of it being, the month, for the awareness of it, was the show that's currently on Netflix called Made.
hmm
And so in the series, one of the things that they touch on when she first leaves is that there's no actual physical abuse, but you can see that this is leading up to that, based on what's going on in the house and the person, they're drinking, and then the person may be doing drugs, but there's always a buildup. And people automatically say, well, it's not physical, but it doesn't start off physical all the time. A lot of times it could be emotional, because I think that emotional abuse is the way that they get you first. It's emotional. You get your emotions intertwined. You instill fear in the person. So once you pretty much have the person's mind and you have their thinking process, you pretty much got them. And I think that a lot of times people don't even understand those signs, as far as the emotional and the verbal aspect of it.
See, I
And
think for me, I think more it starts off more. Well, not everybody, does it differently, but the red flags is when they're unnaturally obsessed with you. They're
yeah.
following and stalking you, and you don't think nothing's wrong with it. You think, what is wrong with this person? But that's when they start, and you be like, okay, they just, are really into me, but you don't see that's part of how they starting with the control. And then you start doing stuff just to kind of pacify them. And then I think when you start getting beat on, it's normally when things are real, like y'all having money struggles or things like that. So you make excuses for the moment because tensions are high. You know what I mean? But I think that unnatural stalking you, that's a huge
Yeah,
red
you're
flag.
right, because those are some of the signs initially. And I think for younger women, they think, oh well, he really likes me,
Yeah.
or whatever. Or for guys, oh, she just, she's really into me or whatever. But it's not okay for someone to, where you at, what you doing, and that was one of the things that they brought out in the emotional abuse part of it. Checking your social media, where you at, what you doing, the jealousy, the envy.
Yeah,
So a
making you
lot.
that girl.
Yeah, because you're not available to them at that time, and people don't understand that is the actual build up to the other
I
things.
wanna ask a question in the chat, because I know this is a very very touchy subject for us all. We may have been in that situation. We may even grew up in that type of situation. And me and Nikki discussed earlier that sometimes maybe we need to look at ourselves and say, have we ever been in a healthy relationship?
Hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because sometimes we think dysfunction and disorder is normal. For example, you may be a person be like, I never seen my father hit my mother. Yeah, he may have never physically put his hands on her, but she might have been going through emotional abuse, financial abuse. If he's the breadwinner and she didn't work, he controls her with his money.
Hmm.
That's abuse. That's domestic violence. Spiritual abuse. Some people may not be in organized religion and they get forced to be in situations because of their mate. So
Hmm.
the reason why this topic is so interesting is because we always look at the physical. Oh, you know, you've been through abuse. You got a controlling mate who wants to know everything you're doing, not allowing you space to sort of breathe, and that's control. That is an emotional domestic violence.
So one of the things that I said I wanted to kind of get to the root of, and I called my mom earlier and we were discussing some things. One of the things that I think is the root cause, and it's not saying that this is the main reason. One of the things when people deal with people in domestic situations or violent situations is that initial insecurity. I think a lot of times we don't address that person may have had like a crazy upbringing and that they have latched on to you. And now that they're in a relationship with you, you may be the only stability that this person has ever known. And sometimes people don't know how to deal with that. So if they feel like things are being taken from them, it starts off as an insecurity. And like Erica said, it's a way to control. And those things are always, I feel like, the
A
root
need
of it.
relationship.
Yeah, it's a need. And they speak about that in a lot of the articles. They say it's the codependency. So you have these codependent relationships where whether it's good or whether it's bad, a lot of times you have someone who is taking than someone who's giving. And in a lot of cases, like Erica said, you don't even realize what's going on in the beginning. But the root cause of it is insecurity. Hold on.
I agree with that.
Yeah, the root cause is definitely insecurity.
Can
I
you?
think a recall of dealing with it, I think, is insecurity as well.
Hmm.
Kenya,
Yeah, that's true.
would you like to chime in?
I didn't hear you.
I said, what do you have to say about it?
It's a
I
lot
think
of
it's
different things.
I think
Don't tell me you got stage fright. Cat got your tongue, Kenya. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you.
I
I'm
think
muting my mic so I don't hear it.
no, I think one of the things too, we need to touch on age. Because you have these different age ranges. When you're young and you're a teenager, I knew people, when we were teenagers that were experiencing domestic abuse. Um, but it ranges, it starts off, you have people that are married, but I think it's also what we see and what we deem as normal or functional, or if we find it acceptable, or what are we really looking for, and why are we willing to accept some of the things that people are giving us. So I think that a lot of times people don't think about the act. Well, like you said, sometimes people can say that I was the aggressor. Sometimes people can say that I was the victim. Depends on who you're speaking to. But we don't really look at the root cause of a lot of things.
I
And I
mean,
think
in any, I believe in any situation, someone, and not to minimize abuse, like I said, somebody's always going to say that they may feel like they're the victim, or they may feel like I'm in this bad situation, and then it just spirals, and then like the stalk it could be like an overprotectiveness or a stalking, and like Erica said, that's the sign that most people don't see, and you could be like,
mhm,
oh, it's cute, he's flattering, he or she is giving me all this attention that I may have never had like this,
mhm,
and not realizing that you're feeding right into this person's insecurity, and then the next thing you know, they control who you talk to,
Yeah,
how
mhm.
that's
you
part of the
move, how you
manipulation.
function. Got low jack on your phone.
Yep. I mean, that's part of the manipulation, though. And a lot of times, some people don't know how to get out, and it's not because they scared to go. It's just like, okay, like some people
Right,
threaten to kill themselves if you leave. You know what I mean?
right.
And don't nobody want that. Don't nobody want that burden
On
if
their
they do. And I know
conscience.
somebody who did. The child did kill himself because the girlfriend said she was going away for the weekend. He hung himself. So it is a thing.
And I think, like you said, it's part of that manipulation. Um, and I mean, it's a weighted subject. I think that's the other thing that a lot of people kind of shy away from talking about the subject, but it's very weighted. A lot of people stay because of financial circumstances. Um, when you're young, or you may be a single parent, and you may depend on that person's income to sustain you or to live a certain lifestyle. Um, you deal with things that you normally wouldn't deal with. A lot of times, I know some men may be in an abusive um, environment with a woman, but she has financial control because she might be the breadwinner, or they might have kids and he may not want to pay whatever if he has to leave. So, a lot of times people don't look at that either. They're like, oh, well, that's not, well, no. Um, some of the things that I read as far as how you can abuse somebody, like if you're inhibiting them from going to work, if you are causing problems so that they have to call in, if you make them feel like, one of the things that the article was talking about, if you make them feel like they got to walk on eggshells every time they're around you, if the person gaslights you, if they make you think you're crazy because you want to have a regular conversation,
That's all
um,
manipulation and control.
that's all
All of it.
manipulation and control.
The same thing, control.
But it's actually abuse, and it said the abuse is basically a pattern. It's a pattern, and the one thing about abusers that I've noticed is that they're very charismatic. So they start this pattern. They and my mother and I were talking about an incident, and they're very charismatic. So once they do something, hey, I'm sorry, I apologize,
They
and
want to.
people like this.
They start victim splaining.
Yeah,
They,
but the
they,
crazy
they,
part
they
is
be thinking
people.
they the victim now.
Right, but the crazy part is a lot of people see that on TV, and if you've never lived through it, a lot of times people will say, "Oh, that's just like the classic, case of an abuser." But if you've ever known someone who was an actual abuser, and you witness them do that, like they will cause problems, create chaos, try to fight you,
Yeah, that's
and
major.
yeah,
When a lot of people do allow themselves to get alienated from friends and family. You
hmm
be like, oh well,
The same thing.
me and my mate, we live such and such. And next thing you know, you be like, yo, I ain't seen my family in over a year.
yeah. Well, because they don't want that resistance in their home. So if you say, "Hey, I'm going to hang out with my sisters and I'm leaving out the house," and when you get back it's going to be a problem, a lot of times people will just opt out. I'm
Keep
going
the
to
peace
opt
in the
out.
house. Yeah.
One of the things that Shay has said was, she said a major issue is the abused do not listen to the advice in the beginning. I
Because they
think
don't
that
see it.
in the way that, and I'm going to touch on some numbers that affect directly the African American community.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we don't, as we would say, vet properly. I think we vet according to our own limited, as long as we want to vet. Oh, I know this person. I'm attracted to them. They're a nice person, whatever. And then it's like, how do you really know them?
I don't
Do
think
you,
it's
do you
a black thing though. I think because when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. I mean, that's a lot of time. It's a lot too. Like
no,
Daniel said, it's way
Erica,
before.
Erica, you can make something bad look real good in a minute if you want it bad enough.
No, I'm just saying when it's good. I'm talking about the relationship. When it's good, it's good. Everything is roses. But when it go bad, it's bloodshed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And some people
Hmm.
are just toxic. They like toxic. I mean, some people like that kind of toxicity. I
And
mean, I
they
hate to
they
say that.
thrive in that
They thrive in
environment.
that, right? A normal relationship is they won't work for them. I hate to say that, but
But
some people like
let
that.
me ask you guys in the chat, and definitely you two young ladies. I'm having issues with Kenya right now.
Here's
Um,
her phone.
let me ask. Um, oh, I done lost my thought,
You
man.
know, that's old people stuff. Listen, I went over that stuff, and it's crazy. So I'm going to give an example now. And it's funny because I wonder if the abuse actually starts in an environment, like if the people, like the abuser sees it, from a child, or is this a learned behavior? If it's not a learned, sometimes I feel like they may see it and they may feel like it's justified. I know older generation men where that was deemed as acceptable, and the woman took it.
I
And
mean, let me ask because let me ask the ladies a question. You meet a guy and he may be a certain type of guy that you may not be interested in. You may like the guy that you're interested in to speak different, to be, as we would say, as we was talking earlier, Nikki, to take control, be in charge, to be a man's man. Now you may get this individual and he may take it, he may be the exactly what you are attracted to, but that could be all the signs of too much control. He may as abuse of power, so to say.
hmm well, I think, and then the other thing that I think is that I feel like predators always examine their prey. So I feel like a lot of times they study the prey. They men, and it's just like women. You know who you can and cannot.
Yes,
You know,
put your money on.
yeah. You
You know that.
people know, and they take a lot of people that are kind, that are giving, that are weak, or they deem weak. If a person's going to continue to forgive you and forgive you and forgive you. And I think a lot of times people don't pay attention to that. These individuals know. It's like, what do they call it? They're getting them. They're what is the word called when they vet, not vetting them, but when they getting ready, they preparing them
They
to do
they,
whatever they're gonna
they
do.
prepared him for a meal.
Yeah, so
They
they know.
they
Like
prepping.
a person will know, okay, this
They're
individual is
grooming you.
grooming. Exactly. They know.
Kenya with the ad lib real quick.
Yeah.
45.1% of black women and 40.1% of black men have experienced intimate partner physical violence, intimate partner sexual violence, and or intimate partner stalking in their lifetimes. 31.8% of black women and 16.8% of black men have experienced one or more of the following intimate partner violence related impacts: being fearful, concern for safety, any post traumatic stress disorder symptoms, injury, need for medical care, housing services, victim advocate services, and or legal services, missed at least one day of work and school, and contacting a crisis hotline.
So
Those
before we
numbers are
start,
scary.
look, before we started the show, I had to call my mom and speak with her about some things, that she had gone through. And I was like, Mom, I just need to make sure that certain things that I speak about, are okay. And she said, no, because, it's about being transparent because you can help somebody else. And I remember she was a young mom, and the guy that she was dating, he didn't necessarily, um, it wasn't that he necessarily physically abused her, but he would do things like he would twist her arm, and he would do things where he wouldn't hit her, but he knew. So when the police would come, if the police were called on the scene, the other thing that I noticed is that they're very charming. So each time, like a lot of times, he was able to charm his way out of being, locked up.
But
And
Nikki,
so,
Nikki, I just want to cut you off for 1 second. That is physical violence. That's intimidation.
it's intimidation. So that's what she was saying. She was saying it was more intimidating. It wasn't so much that, it wasn't no black eyes or nothing like that, but it's the intimidation. And I think a lot of times, even with whether it's sexual abuse or domestic or whatever, it's the intimidation, it's the intent, is what can I do to manipulate the way that this person thinks so that I can have control over them, so I can have power over them. And again, I've been in situations. A lot of times you don't even know that you're in the situation until you're deep in the situation, and so I think it's and it's not about recognizing it. I think sometimes people recognize it, but then they don't, like my mom said, they don't have an exit plan. What's your strategy? Because it's not a healthy environment. You may have small children. It's not a healthy environment, but again, what's your exit plan? What's your strategy? And I think also, if women are dependent on men for finances and things like that, a lot of times they're like, okay, if I leave, I may not have the skills, or I may not have certain things to be able to leave. And so people will deal with things and, put themselves and their families in crazy situations.
I think
Yeah.
I think financial abuse is one of the things that most people don't really talk about a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's very, very common in a lot of situations because if a lot of times money is always an issue in relationships. People have arguments over money, and
Number
um,
one reason why people split.
Well, and not to side with the abuser, but sometimes, people trigger you. And they know they triggering you just to get a reaction. And they don't expect, and I'm talking about women as well. I mean, a man can trigger a woman, and they don't expect that you're gonna punch them. They know that they're kind of bait a little bit. You know what I mean?
That
But
was
not
part of
to,
the emotional stuff though, Erica. If you look at that emotional and that verbal abuse, if you really read over that, part of being an emotional abuser is knowing people's triggers and
right. But I think
triggering
a lot
them.
of the men, not saying that they're not getting beat, but I think a lot of times they trigger a reaction out of a woman. It
Hmm.
takes a lot with the cheating and infidelity, and you just get tired. Even a dog gets tired.
Right.
So I think that a lot of times when a man is getting abused like that, he's triggering her, and that's not being said.
for Nikki, Shay said
Mm,
at what point?
Erica, I
At what?
gotta disagree because at a certain point, you have to have control over you. Meaning, yes, I have control over you. I can't just keep saying my husband triggered me or my boyfriend triggered me, and neither can he say the same thing. You have to have control over yourself. I know that I cannot be putting my hands on this man. He knows that he can't be putting his hands on me. It's the
I,
person.
I agree with you. I'm just saying sometimes when people are getting abused, it's not cut and dry. That's all I'm saying. I don't
True.
disagree with either. Everybody needs to have some self control, and everybody, once you know you're in a situation where these people are triggering you, like Danielle said, they need an exit plan. But nobody says, "Okay, she took me there." No matter how much self control you have, sometimes somebody can't take you there.
But like my
That's
mom was
all.
saying earlier, one of the things is just to leave. And it sounds crazy because a lot of people like it's not always that simple and it's not always that easy. But at some point you just got to leave. And one of the things that the lady brought up on Maid was she said it will take a woman, and this I don't know if it's the same statistics, but this is what the lady said on the show, and I've lived through it. She said it takes about 7 times for you to finally leave. And like my mom was saying,
Mm.
one of the most dangerous times is when you actually do leave, because now you're taking the control from that individual and you're asserting yourself, you're drawing lines, you're saying, okay, no, this is you're saying, okay, these are my boundaries. And that is what can trigger the person to be furious. Like, how do you take away your affection? How do you take away your money? How do you take away you from me?
Oh, I'm gonna kill myself. Don't leave
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, that's when the extra manipulation starts. And I know several people who've done that, tried to commit suicide, and it puts the people in a situation like, what do I do with this situation? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that is another part, like you said, it's the manipulation. Okay, so you're gonna kill yourself, but again, the lady said it takes about 7 times for that person to leave, and I think that we don't consider that. Like, people are comfortable in their homes, they're
Let
comfortable with
me
their
let me
life.
let me ask you guys something. I think we understand this. I think we do all understand what domestic violence is. But my thing is, how do you prevent yourself from being in that situation? Because you could be in the situation and you could be the abuser and don't even know it. Because
Uh,
you can be set in your ways, which have gotten you to where you've gotten in life, and you got a certain way of how you handle your business. Now you don't allow yourself to meet somebody. For example, you could be an aggressive person. You meet somebody that's super soft and sensitive. You don't even know that you're not understanding how they feel.
mm-hmm.
And it's important for me to say because a lot of times people can express sometimes how they feel, but I mean like you be like, you bugging.
Hmm.
Like, why are you so sensitive?
That's part of emotional abuse, though. It said that in the thing. It says not acknowledging the person's feelings, but that is a repetitive thing. It's like one of those things where if every time I tell you something's wrong with me, you telling me that I'm crazy or something's wrong, that I'm tripping. It's just all in my head. That's all emotional abuse because what do they say? This gaslighting. You're not even addressing the issue. What you're doing is trying to make me think I'm crazy or that something's wrong with me for wanting to, speak like an adult. And all of that goes right back to the manipulation. It goes right back to the manipulation. I mean, if you really look up like the emotional and the verbal abuse, I think people are being abused. And you probably don't even know, not to
And,
make light
and,
of it.
and Nikki, that's what me and you shared earlier. Like
Yeah.
when you start doing this research, and I'm um one of the things that we want to do is, like you said, always be transparent. You gotta start looking at yourself and be like, I may have been abusive in this situation, or did I ever make somebody feel? Because I know as a man, for me, we're we're created with masculinity,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know if you show that type of masculinity to the wrong person, how they're gonna perceive it. So
Mm-hmm.
then you they might have been intimidated and really like fearful, and you be like, you don't know it because that's the way you move.
Right.
Okay, I agree with that totally because I know that I have an aggressive personality. And I'm not understanding why you just don't speak up. If you don't say something, if you say something I don't like, I wouldn't. I'm going to say something.
But I
So
think it's what the aggressive personality is not the issue. I don't think that having a manly personality is the issue. I think what it is like what it said, and I think it's a pattern. It is a continued pattern. If you continually, after I say, "Hey, look, I don't like how you're speaking to me. Could you soften yourself?" If you continue to do the same thing after I've asked you repeatedly, and you know that if you raise your voice, I'm gonna jump because of my previous experiences. And if you continue to do that, then no, at that point it is abuse
yeah,
because
I
I've
agree. I
expressed
agree.
to you
Because
that
if you
these are,
tell me that, and no, I'm not doing that. I'll leave. I'll leave first.
yeah.
Nicole brings up a big point. She said I actually had a workshop at work talking about domestic violence today. Another form of intimidation can be digital. For example, someone threatening to post pictures or even out a
Hmm.
person who
That's
has been
blackmail.
keeping their
Yeah,
sexual preferences a secret. Oh, that's major.
yeah,
Yeah.
blackmail.
That's
Yeah.
that's major.
That's part of
If
control and manipulation.
for
Blackmail.
anybody that got teenage kids and kids in their early 20s, these are the conversations that we need to have with our kids because I think the kids don't even understand what be going on
Hmm.
and how it is intimidation, bullying. It's all types of
It's
stuff with that.
digital. Everybody's different. I have thick skin due to my
No,
upbringing.
but Nikki, at the end of the day, you should not have to have thick skin and accept any and everything.
No, you shouldn't. But that's why I said for like the digital stuff and things, like I still question some things when people say it's digital, it's bullying. um I get everybody doesn't receive things the same way. Everybody doesn't get fearful, because I feel like if you tell me that you're going to send some pictures that you may have of me as an adult, I'm going to laugh and say, put them out there, because really I need the money. But as a child, when you know you're not supposed to be sending pictures and doing certain things, then yeah, it is a form of, bullying, and it is a
R.
form,
Kelly.
right?
So I gotta mess with Kenya, right? Kenya, before you unmute your mic, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions, and I want you to answer the question if you don't mind. So you meet this guy, and nice guy, nice, he worked, nice job, but he dumped everything off on you at one time. He like really told you about a lot of his stuff. How are you going to perceive meeting this type of individual? I mean, most people are not going to tell you who they are. Not everything. Kenya.
I like that because that's what I did with my husband that I'm married to now. Um, this is my second marriage. I married him because I wanted him and he wanted me. So I laid all my cards out on the table. I have 2 kids. They're spoiled. I clean up most of the time, half the time, not all the time. It's like, so he already knew I'm gonna pay the bills majority of the time. My part of the bills, I'm gonna pay him majority of the time. Like, no matter what, my first husband is always gonna be around because we share a child. So yeah, I want you to tell me all your business up front. So yeah, I like that.
But what about when you don't get the business and you find out through the grapevine that the person had a hand problem prior to you? You haven't experienced a
Because
hand problem yet, but you
because I
find out through the
saw
grapevine.
because I saw my mom and dad, I'm already hyper vigilant. Like, it
Right.
make it, as a child growing up in that, you already hyper vigilant. So I can assume that I have PTSD. I'm already on it. I'm
Right.
already on it. So I'm not gonna wait. Like, if I find out you lied, I already know the truth, because if I give you an opportunity to tell me the truth about something, 9 times out of 10, it's already what I think anyway.
Hmm. I think one of the bigger things that we need to go with our instincts, and I think women don't do this, and I always say this: if a man finds out something 9 times out of 10, he is going, unless it's like his hands are tied and he has kids. I think women, after like the first situation, cut it. When you recognize it, but we don't do that. We stay and give chance after chance after chance, and I'm telling you, it gets us every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe that an abuser is always an abuser.
Yeah, because they're
It's,
damaged. They got mental health.
yeah. And I feel like unless you go and you really get extensive therapy, and even then they got anger management. The person that my mother was with for years went to extensive anger management. They got back together 3 times. And with the last girlfriend that he was with after her, he hung her over a balcony. And this is like, after years of her going through this with this individual, she finally cut it, and she was like, okay, I can't deal with this anymore. She set herself up in a situation where she knew that the last time that he pulled what he was going to pull, that she could have her escape things like, we don't share our name on this lease, and certain things aren't tied. But that same individual, there are people that have mental health, and then there are people that have substance abuse. I believe mental health abusers are totally different. I personally feel like, because if you come off your substance, it's probably going to change your personality and how you behave and things like that. But if you just have mental health and you just out here and that's your natural inclination to go upside somebody's head, then nah, I think that is who you are. You can go get help. But again, and we were just talking about this. I believe that an abuser is pretty much, is they always have the tendency to abuse.
I'm a
Yeah, that
I,
stuff is
I
rooted in childhood.
I could give a little history on is an abuser always an abuser? I don't think so. I
Hmm.
think that and the reason why is because I have been in some very very toxic relationships. I have been in relationships where, because I'm a man, it could be perceived that I was aggressive. However, when you step out of the relationship,
Mm.
and if you do some real self-examining, you might be like, yo, as everybody's putting up these red flags, sometimes we see the red flags and we just go right through
Mm-hmm.
them. And that works for male and female. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that one thing that we try to do with age and try to mature is not put ourselves in certain situations, like Erica said, that will some people will trigger you. Some people will know exactly what it is that'll get you, as they say, off your rocker. And
And my grandmother said people used to, it's one of those things too, where people know how to press your buttons. And so you got to know what she used to always say is don't go into their ballpark. So when you're dealing with somebody and you already know, you like, and I'm talking, not talking about the kind that just comes in your face, grabs you by the hand, drags you down the hallway, but you just know there are some people that are always going to trigger you. They're always going to attempt to push your buttons. And I can speak on that because, like you said, as a man, you're always seen as the aggressor. Well, I had a situation where, because of the circumstances, I was seen as the aggressor. And I was being triggered. I was the one whose buttons were being pushed. But the circumstances looked as if I was the one. But a lot of people didn't know the background story. And I think that's key too. Because I'm not, one of those people. I'm very transparent in the things that I say and how I live my life. And I worked at the time and I had certain licenses where you cannot behave a certain way because all of that would be I couldn't work if they found out that this situation happened. So there were a lot of things that I actually endured because, number one, I had to take care of my kids. I couldn't lose my license. But sometimes you're in a situation and people think it's opposite of what it is. But
like you, like Nikki, I'm gonna just cut you off to give you an example. Because I kind of know how you move.
mm-hmm.
You meet a guy, and the first thing he tells you is, "I'm old fashioned."
Mhm.
So he like to work. He wants to take care of his family. That's his number one priority. He's going to take care of you financially. He's going to pay all the bills. However, at quarter
I'm
to
okay
six,
with it, but I'm gonna still work.
he want dinner served hot, not out the microwave. He want his clothes ironed before he go to work. Now, I'm not saying that anything is right or wrong with that.
Right.
I'm just saying sometimes you may get an individual that is used to a certain way of going about things, and then it may clash with your personality and
Then that's
clash
not
with how you move.
Let me tell you, that's fine. You can want to do all of those wonderful things for me, but me as an individual and me at knowing what I know at this age, oh, I'm gonna always work and have my money in the hole. But there are some women who you gotta also think too. When abusers start attaching to people and they start latching to people, they know people who have really bad histories with their families. They know that these individuals don't have anybody to go back to. They know that they don't have the support system. So,
They tear down those support systems throughout before they
One,
start
and
abuse.
you know
They tear
that
them.
is that's a pet peeve for me.
hmm,
If I meet somebody and they don't, I mean, even friends, if I meet somebody and they be like, I don't mess with nobody in my family, I ain't trying to be funny. I'm not gonna be as close to that person
hmm.
as somebody that may be like, yo, me and my family real close. Because me personally, I don't know um how it is to how it is to say I don't speak to my sisters or brothers, because to
Right.
me that shows a lot about the person and what they believe. Because if you say you don't mess with your brother, I'm gonna be looking at you like, well, you really ain't gonna be messing with me if me and you have a disagreement.
It's
Not
So,
really.
different.
Some people come from damaged places,
Yeah.
and they need to cut these
but
people off.
but
Sometimes
let me ask you, when when we talk about damaged places, do we allow it to be damaged, continue to be damaged, or do we heal?
you
See,
got to
that's the
heal
thing.
yourself. You can't do nothing for nobody but you.
A lot of times
So if they
people don't
want
even know that they damaged. Like they don't even know they damaged. And most of the time people won't take that time to step back and to really examine themselves. They just jump, and a lot of times they jump from relationship to relationship to relationship, that codependency, and you end up right back into a really messed up situation. So yeah, no, they're not going to examine themselves or look at themselves. That's not it. That's not what most people do.
Yeah.
And they don't, most of the time people don't think that they're the problem. I have been emotionally and verbally triggered, and then one, and I'm gonna tell you, I had 3 instances, and when I tell you, I felt like my hands were absolutely tied in the situation. My hands were tied, and I couldn't, and it wasn't. It, my hands were tied in the situation, and I knew that it had gotten to an abusive point because the individual, I had started making up excuses, and that was a classic abuse thing. I never thought that I would be that individual that would make up excuses for the behavior. And so when I found myself making up excuses as to why I was at work and I had a black eye, it makes you, well, I don't know about anybody else that has been abused, but it made me feel crazy and it made me feel stupid. Number one, I could not explain this black eye from the circumstances, and that should have been the one thing right there. But then a lot of times too, when you're in an abusive situation with somebody, they don't leave. You like, leave. If it's like this, just
Yeah,
leave.
you're not happy. The
If
door's
you
right
can't
there.
make that exit, leave. They won't leave. And so, you know you trying to explain the black eye, if you got to lie about a bruise, a black eye, that was my flex. It was just one of those things. People don't even, for instance, the same individual spit at me.
Yeah,
I
see, that
mean,
makes you punch somebody
hot
hard.
spit at me.
Yeah.
Now, in normal circumstances in the situation, I would have been able to do certain things. But again, I got my license. I have certain things that I can't know. And these individuals know that because that's part of the emotional control.
Manipulation.
That's a part of the abuse. You hawk spit at me. Another time, because the person says they couldn't do certain things, that individual hit me and chipped my teeth. Now, I think that was it for me, because when we get to messing up my face, we got a whole nother thing. But, a lot of times people didn't even know. And I'm trying to hold it together but I really want the end of, sometimes you can't even get rid of the person. But I'm going to tell you, I want to say that one of the things that women should always do is always cross their T's and dot their I's. Document. Like, it's one of those things where if you have to go down, even if it just feels like you pulling teeth, you got to make sure you put restraining orders on these people. You got to
let me
document
ask you guys a
stuff.
question, because you guys are women. The worst thing for a woman to do with her male family is to tell her male family she was abused and say, "Don't do nothing."
Wow. No, that
I
wouldn't
don't think
go.
that's the worst thing because you about to get them locked up. You need to
Nah,
go.
you say you tell
No, that's
you
not.
tell a male in
No,
your
that's
family
not what.
what happened, and you say, "Don't do nothing." He's gonna do
No,
something.
that's not what tick your family off. What ticks your family off is they get involved and then y'all back together.
Yes,
Mm.
I agree with that
And then
totally.
you expect your family, we're going to say me. I get my cousins involved because I don't have siblings. So I get my male cousins involved, right? Okay. They stomp a mud hole in my partner. Then I break it up. And then we back together all lovey.
That's what happened to my coworker. Her husband went over there. Her sister was getting abused. He shot him in the back of the head when he was leaving out, and she got back with the dude. When people are in those situations, sometimes you have to let that be because you about to get hurt or catch a charge, and more than likely they're gonna go back to that person.
I think too that people are also they're scared to get involved in certain situations, because I've been out driving before and I saw a lady running across a 2-lane highway. And so, me being the person I am, it was second nature to me. I didn't think. I saw her running and a guy was chasing her, and her flip-flops and stuff. And so she was like, he's trying to kill me. So she's in the median. So I'm like, go to the other side, and once you get to the other side, I'm going to drive around and pick you up. No other people stopped. No one else stopped for this woman. And you can see this man running behind her. You can see her looking like she had just gotten beat. And she's screaming, she's crying. I think now, because you don't know, a lot of people don't want to place themselves in that situation where they are in the middle of something. A lot of people don't even want to get involved.
One of the things that we don't we always, when we're not in that situation, we may be a little too judgmental
That
and
part.
want to know why a person didn't leave. Some, like we discussed, like the young ladies discussed earlier, sometimes you don't even know it's abuse. And this is why domestic violence is so deep, because forget the physical part of domestic violence.
Yeah.
We have to think about that emotional and financial part, because
Hmm.
that is where it begins. The
That's where
head
it
games,
starts.
the head games begin. Like we decide, like we said, when somebody that's the abuser may be like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill myself," huh? I'm just pointing
Hey,
out certain things, or why you leaving, and so we gotta realize that this stuff is really, really deep,
well,
and it's
one of the
plaguing our
things,
community.
Quentin, they were talking about that eggshell thing. If you are in a situation and you live with somebody and you feel like you are constantly on eggshells, you can't say a certain thing, you can't do a certain thing, you can't wear a certain thing, you can't go places. All of that is abuse. All of that is abuse. And a lot of times I don't really know. I used to go and volunteer at a women's shelter. I don't, and now they have these safe houses. I think with the young people, with certain people, they end up calling them and getting right back with them. I mean, I don't know. I think it needs to start from a healing perspective, because why are you even in this situation to
But both of
begin
these
with?
people are damaged, though.
That's what I'm
Both of
saying.
them have their own damage. So how are two trauma bonded people going to heal themselves? They have to do the work. They both need help separately.
Hmm.
They both
Hmm.
are there for a reason. I
Yeah.
mean, it's really a mental health thing. And some things are there, okay, financial needed things like that. They may not want to give up their lifestyle, but the fact that you're willing to deal with this for a certain amount of time, there's something. I mean, there's something you have to look at yourself and like, what is wrong with me that I stayed all of this time? There is something wrong on both
Hmm.
of the abuser and the abusee.
I think.
Erica,
Yeah.
Normal,
and
healthy
that's
people, huh?
Erica, and that's important, that the individual who was abused also
Yes, there's something
stay
wrong with you as well.
stay within, as they say, the treatment and understanding, like, you you should have left. Not victim. I don't want to victim shame, but at the end of the day, that's why they have the counseling and the follow up calls and everything. Like, look, you're something's wrong with you if you keep going back and forth.
Hmm.
Like, you have a form of PTSD.
Hmm. But again, they think that that's love. I mean, and people don't really know healthy love. It's not okay for someone to call you every hour on the damn hour. It's I'm gonna get deep with it. It ain't okay for them to call. Listen, I'm out. I said I was out. And you don't need to know my location. Why do you need to have the location to my phone? Those things are insecurities, and that's your way of controlling and manipulate me, to make me fit whatever it is that you need for me to fit. And I think people need to understand that's not love. It's not love that you got to be around somebody 24
Nick,
7.
Nikki, but let me ask you, that is a preference for not only that's a preference for you. You don't require that. You don't want that. But you have some women, and then that type of man, where it feeds right into him.
Oh yeah.
It feeds right into the abusive mentality. She wants him
But
to
she
call
loves
every
him
hour
more than
on
she
the
loves
hour.
herself.
Right. You gotta love somebody, and a lot in order to allow somebody to talk to you any kind of way, to treat you any kind of way, you
You love
keep
them
going
more than
back.
you love
You
yourself.
love
It's
them
just
more
don't
than you
ever.
love you. You
And
know,
sometimes it takes them putting their hands on your child. Okay, we done here. I'm about to start set you on fire. You can
right.
deal with it as far as you taking it,
Or
but
a
you're not
Erica,
family
gonna do
member.
nothing.
Like
Erica, let
you
me
could
find
take
out you
it.
saw the burning bed as a kid.
No,
I
like,
did see the burner bed multiple times. They played it every year, but yeah, she got
but
away with it
no,
too.
like it a lot of times too, it may take people to leave, like what Erica said. It may not be you, but it could be somebody in your family. For instance, what was the trigger for my mom was when the individual got into a scuffle with my grandmother. That was it for her. She was done. She was like, okay, at this point, I'm not going to do it anymore. It's fine as long as we're going through our things. But when you start, abusing
Yeah, put in your
members of
hand. Yep.
it's
No
time to
more in your
go.
life.
Let me ask you, Nikki, and I appreciate your mom allowing allowing you and herself to be tell her personal
Transparent.
business. We all could benefit from it. Let me ask you, Nikki, because you saw that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you may got to meet a guy and he raised his voice, you may be like the eyebrow go up. You may be like, hold up now. So do you think that because you saw this stuff in that environment, this formed your way of thinking?
It did, definitely. I was just speaking to my mother about it earlier, and I said, one of the things that it did for me, I said, it allowed me to see, and my mom's just not an aggressive person. She's very passive, she's very soft, she's very loving. But what it did for me was, in turn, any relationship that I formed, as an adult, uh I had the mentality that you will not get me, I will get you first. And the reason being is because I never, and I was just talking to her about it, and I was like, even as a young girl, like, just hit this man with a bucket or something. Like, I just, just do something, because I couldn't understand it. But yeah, I have that mentality. No. And I say this lightly, and I mean, I'm serious. Like, you put your hands on me, then we both might have to go down. Um, but it's so different for Black women too, and that was something that a coworker and I were speaking about. It's like when a Black woman goes through domestic violence, or if a Black woman, we were talking about sexual assault too. So if a Black woman goes through sexual assault or domestic violence, it's really light. Oh well, they take it lightly. Um, but if Jill went through the same thing, whether it be rape or domestic violence, it's taken very heavy. Black women are made, we take so much. Everybody wants us to be so strong. And I think that's the other reason why we feel like it's okay, because we're in a situation and we're fighting back. Yeah, we're fighting back, and we're taking some licks or whatever, but it's not okay. And I think that that's what we do. We put up these fronts like, I'm so strong, I'm so strong. Yeah, you're fighting them back, but is it okay? Is it
Yeah, but
okay that you have to fight back?
I think just because your mother wasn't aggressive, I have an aggressive personality, and for me, I had to dig to figure out why I stayed in my situation outside of my daughter needing for the person to be, even though it wasn't physical. I know I grew up with the parent. My brother was the favorite child, and I spent a lot of time trying to get my mother to love me. You know what I mean, and doing all these things to make them love me. You know what I mean. So, but that goes across all my relationships. I didn't
Right.
figure this out till I got older. In any relationship that I'm in, I'm always trying to, even though I have an aggressive personality, just in my relationship, I'm trying to do these things. And that
Mm-hmm.
goes back to my childhood. It's just a lot of these things that we're doing is rooted in your childhood. You just have to sit back and try to figure out how it happened. Not that I'm blaming my mother for everything that happened. Like
Right.
everybody says, it's always your mother. But this is just one thing that I've realized in a lot of my friendships. You know what I mean? Not even just in regular relationships, not that I had that many, but I'm
Right.
always in that position where, and I know it's a codependent person, I don't want to see my friends upset or mad or happy, and I'll
Right.
go through the changes even though I don't feel like it or want to make them happy, just in my
And
mind it's out of loyalty for them, but no, that's rooted
it's
in
rooted.
codependency.
Erica
Yeah.
said something, Quentin. I think I told you about it before. She was like, the that one thing that she brought up was that we will spend a lifetime. Somebody's phone probably need to be muted. Is it mute?
Yeah,
We'll
I
spend
said
like a
that you will spend the
lifetime.
rest of your life.
Yeah,
I said
we'll spend
whatever
a
you missed in your
lifetime trying to
childhood, you will
correct
spend
those
the rest of your
things.
life trying to
one
get.
of one of the things that Erica, I'm glad you brought that up because I think being self-aware of who you are,
Mm-hmm.
what what makes you tick, what drives you, what motivates you, what makes you as a man, what makes you a man, as you a woman, what makes you a woman, what makes a woman have her womanhood and man have his manhood. I think for me, being self-aware is something that I didn't properly value um earlier in life, and I value it more now. understanding where I'm at, how I think, what makes me tick, so forth and so on. It's interesting that you brought that up, Erica, and that's a really, really a good thing. How you were able to identify some things from your child and be like, okay, this is why I act the way I act. I mean, right, wrong, and indifferent. This is who you are. I think that was really a profound statement.
But then once we find out that this is why we are the way that we are, at what point do we decide to make corrections, and do we decide that we're going to heal from it or not continue the same cycle, or to, and I think one of the things that I was looking at too, it's important for us to teach our children. So I have two girls. So I think that it's important for dads to have this relationship and to speak to their daughters about what is acceptable and what's not acceptable,
I
and then
think,
and
but
vice
see,
versa, because you have a lot of men who actually hate their moms. And
Yeah,
so
yes.
that's a key factor. Like if you hate your mother, you're not going to have respect for any other woman. So you have these men who really need, not only are they teaching their sons, they need to teach their daughters, and you have these women who need to be a certain way or to communicate with their sons and let their sons see things. Because if a man doesn't have a connection with his mom, he's never ever going to treat a woman a
But I
certain way.
think once you figure out what your damage is, and I find myself constantly have to do this because it's part of my personality now, you have to, I guess, set boundaries is what you will call it. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like in any interaction that you do. No, I'm not doing it. I don't feel like it. You have to just say it. You know what I mean? You have to remember to do it. It's like a thing that you have to remember to constantly do. It's
Mm-hmm.
like
You have
being
to
on
set
drugs. You know,
boundaries.
it's like an
well,
everyday situation.
well, Nikki, you brought up the daughter thing. I don't have a daughter, um, but I know that my relationship with my nieces is a lot different than my relationship with my nephews.
Mm-hmm.
My niece's relationship is I'm more of, yeah, I'm their uncle, but I'm like their big brother, their
Mm-hmm.
friend, their confidant, where they can talk to me about anything. Definitely the two of them that are what I would consider grown now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like I'm overbearing. I mean, I think I would treat mine the same way I was treated by my aunts. Like even now, my aunts now are like the second mother. I think that
Right.
when your parents, both of my parents just passed away, so their siblings kind of like took on
Feels.
the role as like
Yeah.
the parent. So like even now, I have an aunt, and you know how we say I'm grown, but my aunt will check me like I'm still a kid, and
Mm-hmm.
I accept it. If I'm out of pocket with something, I can accept her saying certain things to me. She won't even have to say much. She'll put it on Facebook. If she see me do something on Facebook, she'll say something, and I'll be like, okay, I know what she's talking about.
But see, this is the thing. We need to really like, and I don't have boys, but I think that, and I had a lot of younger, well, no, let me correct myself. I do. I have a boy, and his mama's Kenya. And one of the things that I definitely say, and with boys, a lot of times these young girls, and I used to be young at one point myself too. If she put her hands on you, walk away, walk away. See, it's part of that training. But then, like Eric and I had a conversation the other day. There are some women, they know who they can put their hands on and who they can't put their hands on.
That's exactly right.
You
You know who you can beat on, or who gonna blow, bust your head in the wall.
Right. So they know, but it's not acceptable. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I've been young, I've been married twice, being in my first situation, being the aggressor. There were certain things I knew that individual, he was raised by his mom and his dad. That was not going to take place. In my second situation, however, had that individual been able to do it, he'd lump my llama. I'm just saying. But you gotta know, and you gotta speak to um your children. You got to show your girls. The men have to say, hey, if he get a little too aggressive, he hold your wrist. If he tries to tell you how to dress, if he's checking up on you so much, the men need to really say that, nah, that's not okay. And then women need to tell their sons, hey, if she's doing this and she's antagonizing you and she's walking behind you and she to bust your car windows out, or she coming up to your job and doing all this stuff, let her go. It's toxic.
One of the things, I don't share this very much about my son, right? My son, uh, he moves at 25 like I move now.
Hmm.
He doesn't he's very laid back, not like how I was when I was his age. So he sits back and just chills, and he has his little stuff going on. Um and I say that to say that my conversations with him have changed. As a young man, we talk about different things, um, dealing with
But if
women.
he's laid back, Quentin, what if he comes to you and he says, "Hey, Dad, I'm dating this girl, and she came past the house. She flapped my tires. She did this, she did that. He's laid back. See, I think a lot of times people, and it goes
I
back to
No, no,
that.
no, 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 no. Something like that with him, he would be telling me, knowing him, he'd be telling me like, "Yeah, I called the cops on her. She don't be destroying my
Right. And so
property."
I think people need to know how to handle stuff,
Yeah, I
especially
think I
younger
think
people.
he's not the type of individual that would like a lot of drama,
Drama,
and
yeah.
a
Like
lot,
my
lot of
nephew.
lot of extra stuff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we those of us that got these kids that's in their 20, 20, 27, and
Mm-hmm.
21, y'all know how they are. They
Mm-hmm.
real detached from a lot of the BS that we
Yeah.
we may have went through. They
Yeah, they
very
don't do it. It's a
They're
different
not the
generation.
same.
yeah.
Yeah, because my nephew, I know he had one of these girls who was like, "Oh, you can date both of us." My brother was like, "Well, what you gonna do?" He was like, "I'm gonna leave that alone. I think it's gonna be a lot of drama." Yes, you're correct, but people in our generation would have did it. So
Right.
One of the things was is just how does violence and sexual assault intersect? Perpetrators are usually physical violent towards their intimate partners and often sexually abusive as well. Victims who are both physically and sexually abusive are more likely to be injured or killed than the victims who experience one form of abuse. Abusers assault people of all genders, races, ages, social classes, ethnicities. Women who are disabled, pregnant, and attempt to leave their abusers are at the greatest risk for intimate partner rape.
Look, again, um, it's all about your life, your resources, who you have in your corner. A lot of times people don't want to leave. The one thing that I notice is when women get pregnant and they have these babies, they want to keep their original unit. And so a lot of times they will go through certain things and sacrifice certain things to keep their original unit. However, if you are being abused emotionally, physically, financially, mentally, or raped, it's not okay. I mean, but a lot of times when you're young, the young people, they typically want to keep their unit, and it's not healthy. They know that the person might be gone out or whatever, but it's not
it's
you
mental
know
health and abuse, though, Daniel. Just like R. Kelly. I mean, they basically sold them to that man. You know, he paid them for the deal. That. Then you got these girls out here who these pimps are able to put on the street. A lot of this stuff is heavy mental health, though. It's not. I'm not saying this is what you're some of the lighter things, but some of the heavier things that these young girls have been through. I mean, they getting sold into sex slavery. There's a lot of stuff really, really going on. The ones who rescued coming out of that stuff, it's a lot of damage, out here. And it's been there for generations, especially the women who, you can put them out on the corner and beat them, and you know what I mean. It's a lot.
One of the things that I posted on was the black women thing, though. See, and the problem, part of the problem is with the black women, we're victims, but we're always taught to be strong or to be seen as strong, and we don't. Sometimes, even in our community, like we're just starting to be open
I'm
to
gonna ask you
therapy.
that. I'm gonna ask you guys that. I did a show with two very good friends of mine about a month and a half ago, and we discussed that black women always have to be strong, and they could never be show emotion, not emotion, but they could never be
So
show their
emotional.
weakness or show some type of form of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that, and what could we do to stop that and not allow that?
We've always been the backbone. I mean, you just think about it. Black women always had to work. White women was taken care of. That comes with its own caveats. But we've always had to work, be strong, take care of the kids. We not only did we have to work, because back in the day we had to work and deal with the house and family because that was our role. And you didn't. It wasn't really no room to
We didn't
be
have
weak.
options. You have
Yeah,
to.
it wasn't no room for it.
Yeah,
You
you
know what I
don't
mean?
have that
Because if
option.
if we don't do it, the whole operation will fall apart. Period.
Do you believe
So
that?
yes, the whole operation, men are not held to the same standard. If they work and have a job, yeah, that's it.
Your
You
phone is
gotta
messing up.
and
Hold on.
deal with that. Especially back in the day.
Erica, you still believe if you guys don't do it, the operation will fall?
Who gonna do it if we don't?
I'm
A
just
lot of people, we
asking.
don't have a lot of
But
support system.
part of the problem is with Black women, I think we need to recognize when we are in a depression. We need to recognize when we are having anxiety. Um, I think that that's part of a problem. We don't just
But
say, you know what, I'm depressed or I'm
yeah,
having
but you
anxiety.
okay, but just the kids, the money still got to be made, the roof got to still be put over your head. You still
That's
got to get up
true.
and deal. So
But we
yes, you
still
can be
have to get our
depressed, but
mental health together.
life
In order,
doesn't stop. But
my
that's why
thing,
we have the mental health. Life
you got
doesn't stop.
right. But my thing is, if I'm not good for me, I can't be good for you.
I
So at
don't
some
disagree
point,
with that.
I got to take care of myself.
Okay,
And
but how
and
do
I
you
think
do that and still feed everybody?
we need to recognize when we need to take a time out. Let me tell you, that one relationship I was in, it was killing me. Anytime you wake up in the morning, anytime your body hurts, anytime you can't get out the bed, that's
That's
physically
depression.
killing you. That's
I don't
depression.
understand, but some people don't have the option to chill or take a back seat or sit down somewhere.
They
That's
don't.
not an option for everybody.
They don't. But I think that we need to recognize when we are really in the thick of it.
I think
And
we do. We just don't have options.
yeah,
We
I
suggest
think we
we
don't
don't have no
exercise
options.
our
Nobody
options. I
does.
think we do have some options, but we definitely don't always exercise them. We don't.
I guess most people live in check to check. So missing that one check is going to bring the whole situation down. I mean, period. And that's just not even as Black women. That's most of half the people in America. So
Yeah.
sometimes we just so used to getting up and keep going because there's no other option. You can't lay there. You know what I
I
mean?
think
So,
one
So
of the
let me ask you guys. It, we know what has always been. Black women are always supposed to be strong, never show no emotion, never show no type of vulnerability. How do we stop it? If this, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not disputing none of what you guys are saying. How do we stop putting the burden on Black women in this instance and everything be okay, or back to what we would say normal?
I'm not sure. For me personally, my daughter, her brother and her father, when she was little, she could kind of manipulate this and that. But I hated this woman, so I always made it. She was sure she was strong. Because I feel like Black women always have to be strong. So a lot of it may have to be in the way we teach our girls. I don't know. For me, I hate a weak woman. I cannot stand it. I mean, that's probably horrible to say, but I do. So I need to make sure my daughter can survive and make it and not be dependent. That's my main thing. I don't need her to be dependent on nobody and she can take care of herself no matter what. So maybe it's something in that we're doing wrong. You know, I don't know.
I think one of the things that we can do as a community too is stop being so judgmental or hard on one another. A lot of times, people don't say that they judging or they don't say that they, whatever. Stop being so hard and judgmental on people because you don't really know what that person is going through. You know, and then too, one of the things that we can do, just it's nothing wrong with going to talk to somebody, not your girlfriend, not your mama, somebody that's not in it, they're not biased, that can really help you think through some of those thought patterns, because really all it is the way that you process things and the way that you think. So we need to make sure that as individuals we take accountability for our actions, and go and get therapy and go and talk through some of this stuff, because once you come out of it and once you realize, hey, I deserve better than this, or you know there's more to life than this, you really see things in a whole new light. But a lot of times, we don't go and do the work. We will
Well, for me
continue.
personally, I had to wait till my kids were grown and the stress was off. It wasn't as bad, or they got older. Then I could kind of tend to myself a little bit more. But while you in it and you doing it every day and trying to make sure your kids are good, sometimes it's hard. It's just because you gotta keep going. And you
I
go from
think
the
we need
time
to
you
break
get up and the
cycles
time
too,
you lay
though.
down.
Some of the things are cyclical. So for one of the things that I did, and I said, okay, I know everybody's living this life where everything looks fancy and it looks pretty and it looks fluffy. Look, it ain't working. So for me, it was breaking a cycle. I'm not going to have my family in here and people aren't speaking, and it's highly dysfunctional, or the way that we communicate is dysfunctional. That was something that was huge for me. I did not want to create that same environment. No. So as much as we try, we need to recognize when some of the things ain't right. And if it's not right, let it go, because we hold on to stuff for appearances. And like I said, for financial reasons. And you ain't doing nothing but messing the next set of people up. It's messing them up. That, I mean, and everybody
I
don't have
just
to
think I
witness
agree.
it. Yeah. But sometimes we trying to hold it together. Oh, I got my husband and I got my wife and I got my cars.
No, I
And
don't
what is
think
it?
you need to keep the abuse. I think we're talking about something entirely
Yeah, but what
different.
I'm
Just black
saying is
women
when you're
again.
in a bad situation, it's okay to let it go. It's okay to
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
you know what, I don't
I
have to
agree with
live in
that.
this big house. I don't have to, put up this front. Because look, the one thing that I learned is people gonna judge you either way, whether it's truth, whether it's false, whether it's good, whether it's bad. Everybody's gonna always have their opinion, but we have to do what is good for us. And I
I
think
agree.
yeah, a lot of times people don't want to do that. They don't want to, I know people now that live in big, huge homes, that look good. Everything's looking good from the outside, but the people up in there drinking, fighting, you got to call the police. So my thing is, when this is all highly dysfunctional, but we have to take that time to say, this isn't normal. It isn't okay. I need to heal. Because all it's going to do is create another cycle of
My thing is, and Nikki, you just said it. Most people that grew up around dysfunction will swear it was normal. They may not
Mhm.
even realize, like, what is a
Functional
normal,
dysfunction.
what is a normal healthy situation?
There isn't
You
one.
know, you know, our parents did what they had to do to survive, did what they had to do to raise us. And then we may sit back and look at it as adults and be like, well, I felt as though, like Erica said, she felt as though that her mother favored her brother.
She did.
Now, now that wasn't in Erica's situation. The way she viewed it, that was not a healthy situation.
Right.
So my thing is, when we when you do your self reflection and say, okay, I don't want to raise my family the way that I was raised. And then you may think that you're raising a healthy situation now, and then your kids may perceive it as unhealthy.
One of the things that I did, and I was very cautious about this, because when we started talking about sexual abuse and sexual assault, I was that one parent. My children couldn't go to other people's homes. Like, they could not go to the home. And I was trying to break that cycle of, no, you can't go to a sleepover. I don't know these people. I don't know their families. And then what ends up happening is then they say, oh, well, you were overprotective, or, you do too much. And it was really a method of me, but we need to really, like, and a lot of times too, people don't want to know, kids molest other kids,
Yeah,
that's something that people don't talk about. A
different
lot
show.
of
Yeah.
young Black males are molested by other young Black males. There are
Yep.
so many different like categories you can go into when there are people that live in homes with family, and the uncle is doing it, or so, like, these are things that need to be put out on the table. Again, families know that they got the one uncle that ain't right,
But
but what
those
do
are
they do?
extremely unhealthy situations. But to answer his question, like one of the people just chimed in, seek therapy. But if you don't
Yeah,
think nothing's wrong with you,
it's
therapy's not
hard to
going to
do
help you, or it's
therapy.
not going to work. You got to understand that you got a problem, and that's what's
Right.
Yeah,
wrong with all these people. It's nothing. They think it's nothing wrong with me.
because you could be in your mid 40s and meet somebody, and then you start telling them about your situation. They'd be like,
Hmm.
that wasn't healthy.
At all.
And
And
then
you don't even
then
realize.
then they could tell you about their situation, and you could perceive it and be like, well, you wasn't in the healthiest situation either. And then, like, my thing is, we're all trying to correct and be not perfect, but reach a sense of
No such
perfection.
thing.
But we all want to be in healthy situations,
Hmm.
and when it ties in with domestic violence, and that control factor is, like Kenya said, you kind of like put everything, not everything on the table at once, but you need to let people know who you are.
Hmm.
Yeah, but you got to know who you are. That was my thing. Like, I have damage, but I know what my damage is, and I'm
Right.
working on it. A lot of people don't understand that they messed up.
Yeah.
So, and they don't realize that. They think they're functional. They
Because
don't
their
know what they're doing is
family
crazy.
dynamics are crazy, and you're telling them, hey, this isn't normal, this the way that, but, like, again, me going to the therapist, what is technically normal, but that's what they would say. Like, my normal might not be your normal. You know, it's all in how we handle it. But I think a lot of people are damaged, and what they often do, especially when they get into these abusive relationships, you jumping from relationship to
Yeah.
relationship to
Instead of spending
relationship
time with yourself, getting
instead
to
of
know who
taking
you are.
that time out, because your insecurities creep up. One of my situations, like every time I'm going to the gym, it should not be a question as to what time I'm coming home, what time I'm that. Look, I'm at the gym. Those are
but
insecurities.
Nikki, when you say that, right? You have women and men that will feel like if you don't do that, you don't love me. You don't care about me.
But the thing about the situation is, people gonna be where they want to be. If they want to be home with you, that's where they be.
Right.
Period. So you
And you
can
can't
chase them
control
down. People,
people.
yeah, they're gonna do
That's
what
the
they
bigger
want. They
thing.
gonna cheat. They gonna cheat. So what do you think you clocking their every move is gonna do? They gonna figure it out. Pull somebody in. If somebody want to be sitting in the house with you, that's where they be. If they ain't there, that's because they don't want to be there. Period.
Hmm.
But you gotta understand that
And
sometimes
one of
it's
the
not all of this
things,
complicated thing. They just don't like you.
yeah, one of the things too is like, if every time you tell them that you're going to do something or you're doing it, they can't just let you have that space and that time outside of them.
Be your
You,
own person. Yeah,
yeah, they
that's
can't.
not normal.
That's one of the things when I've been to several marriage counselors, hence why I'm single. But one of the things that the marriage counselor said was a great marriage are two individuals that have their own lives, their own separate lives. And so then you come together. But if you're in a situation or in a marriage with someone, and it feels smothering, it feels overwhelming.
Yeah, one person shouldn't complete you. That's what
Yeah.
some people think. You complete me. No, you need to be
No.
complete
Yeah.
without me. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And come together and we can do something else. But no,
Yeah.
some people need somebody to complete them. They don't feel whole.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of stuff going on, and that's mental health.
Yeah. And the
So
thing, yeah, you just don't get a chance to tell somebody, you know, um, how to walk, how to talk, whatever it may be. But a lot of times I think we need to, the bigger thing I think with abuse is when you really learn to love yourself, when you really learn to figure out who you are, that you are complete by yourself on your own. You don't need someone else to complete you. If you're single, if you're married, whatever the case, you will be okay. That you will receive love outside of somebody controlling. I think once people get that foundation and they become secure,
Yeah, you
that
deserve better. Then
yeah,
you'll
that
be okay.
you can move. But
But
until
you need to
then,
figure out your damage. You
yeah,
can't do nothing until that happens.
that damage is huge. There's so many people attaching to other people because of their damage, and they don't even realize it, like you said, because they grew up in dysfunctional situations. They grew up, and so, and well, and fortunately for us, we're at that older age where we're doing a lot of healing and a lot of reflecting and a lot of thinking, and we're moving forward. But it's not the same for
now
everybody.
that mortality is kicking in. Like,
Hell
oh,
yeah.
I'm getting closer to death. Let
Life
me
is short.
rectify.
I
Let me
don't need to
rectify
go.
my affairs. Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or you just understand what peace is. Once you find that peace, that's a whole nother level. It puts you in a whole different place because you never had it before. Sometimes you just don't. You've never had peace, and once you could reach that, you be like, I don't want to. And the drama creeps back in. You be like, oh no, we're not
Mhm.
going here. We're not
I
doing this
did.
anymore.
I
you
did
see
want to
it,
touch on
Erica? You
something.
see it from around the corner, huh?
Quentin,
Yeah,
one of the
no,
things I
we're
did
not
want to
doing that.
touch on, and it was part of that article that I had put out during the week. One of the things and it was from the sexual abuse aspect of things. One of the things that kind of bothered me, because I see it a lot on social media and with the R. Kelly thing, and with the different, Black women, we do feel our bodies, as young children, we fill out, faster maybe than others. We do develop at a different rate and things like that. One of that article stated that, typically if a young Black girl has a certain figure or something like that, that they say that they're fast. And I see a lot of people like making light of the situation with R. Kelly. And I think and even that article that you put out with the 18-year-old that was with the 47-year-old guy. Like, you gotta know that these are babies. And
But she got daddy issues. That's why she
yeah.
did.
But
That
one of the
issue.
things that they said, they were like, oh yeah, well, what about you fast girls that were in high school and you were leaving with the grown man. I see that meme a lot.
But the grown man was coming, it's patrolling the high schools. Like, what is
Yeah,
wrong with
but
him?
it
What
doesn't make it
about?
okay. It doesn't make it
Right.
okay. If you're dealing with a young girl and she barely has pubic hair, that cannot be okay. And
Well, like
I
Kenya
feel
said,
like
they
when
like to
men,
groom these young people. Women do it
especially
too.
yeah, especially with the girl that was 47 on the page, the guy that was 47, the girl that was 18. I feel like that right there was a classic case of manipulation. Like when people get with people that young he was with her mother. Was he with her mom or something like that?
He was the
It was
Godfather.
crazy.
He was the Godfather.
Yeah, he was her godfather. Like, really? He done changed this girl's diapers. Like, some of
Woody
that
That
stuff
Allen,
ain't normal.
Morgan
that
Freeman, all of
that
them do.
that is not a touchy subject. That's a different subject.
Yeah,
We could definitely discuss that because
yeah.
I have
Morgan Freeman,
some
Woody Allen,
some
all of them famous people out in the public doing it.
I have some strong opinions when it comes to that. So we could definitely
Come
discuss
on
that.
now.
No, we ain't gonna discuss that now
No,
because
I'm
I
just
would
saying you got to know that she's a child. You got to know that it's not normal. Um, but again, I spoke to somebody recently, and you'd be surprised. Like somebody just recently, and they were telling me that as a young male, their sister molested them like young. So it's even men. I think a lot of times, especially black men, they hold a lot of that stuff in too.
Yeah,
Yeah, they hold that in because that is a really big
well
thing.
for
Black
well
men,
and it's like a double standard, so to say, which is really unfortunate.
yeah. And I think the
A lot
thing,
of young men can deal with older women, and people may not look at it as abuse, but it actually still is abuse.
but around the
You
world, it's acceptable. I mean, they have child brides mostly
so
everywhere outside this country.
that is definitely something we could discuss. Is there anything else you guys would want to discuss with domestic violence and
sexual
sexual
assault.
assault?
I think
My
Kenya
thing is,
needs the last word. But go ahead.
no, I was gonna say just that healing. Do that self work. Take time out to be by yourself. If you don't have a therapist, one of the things that I always where I work at, I'm one of those people. I believe in therapy. I don't believe in talking to your girlfriend, your mama, nobody like that. I believe that you need to have someone help you see how you think, your thought process,
Yes, your damage.
your
Everybody
damage,
has
and
one.
how you can heal from it. And a lot of times we do not do that work, and then
Yep,
you'll continue to repeat the same things over and over and over if you do not do that work.
agreed.
Mr. Q.
Well, I'm gonna say great show. Um, my only closing remark is to understand domestic violence is to understand control. When you enter these type of relationships, male and female, this type of control should never be abused because once it's abused, that's when it becomes domestic violence, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, financial. And this is what it happens from. So nobody is should be trying to control nobody else. You only control who you are and what you do.
That's it.
With that, everybody have a blessed night, and we will see you guys next Wednesday.